Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome to today's episode of To Catch a Predator. I'm your host, Chris That was last week. Welcome to today's episode of How You're Getting Effed. I'm your host, Louis Rossman. If you're a new subscriber from the BWE video, hi, pleasure to meet you. I'm Louis Rossman, and we discuss right to repair and right to own on this channel. Right to repair, the fact that many companies place artificial barriers in place of you being able to fix what you bought and paid for. Right to own, manufacturers having cloud-connected devices that allow them to disable them remotely, even though you bought and paid for it, making it very unclear whether or not you actually own it. Today we're going to be focusing on Nintendo's change to their end-user license agreement in terms of service. Honestly, the change in their terms of service and their end-user license agreement is not something that I consider to be bad or newsworthy. What I consider to be newsworthy is the response to it. And that's what we're going to focus on in this video, because it's the cultural change that needs to happen in order for this stuff to stop occurring that I want this channel to inspire. There's one portion that everybody is up in arms about. It's you acknowledge that if you fail to comply with the foregoing restrictions, Nintendo may render the Nintendo account services and/or the applicable Nintendo device permanently unusable in whole or in part. If I log on to their services and I start screwing around with other players and cheating in video games, them banning me from their services is completely understandable. I would even understand them banning me by hardware ID. The problem is when they say that they were going to brick my device in a manner where it will be permanently unusable, even if I would like to use it in single player mode with any of my games. Simply because you do not like what I have done with my device does not mean that you have the right to disable my device. I think that that's wrong. There are people that are going to say that this is rage bait. Why is anybody bothered by this? And in my opinion, that's the real news. Nintendo doing something that everybody else is doing at this point that is anti-consumer as a large company, I expect it at this point. But what I don't expect are users to be okay with it. And this is the part we're really going to argue in this video. This is the top voted comment. It is also almost twice as upvoted as the original post. This is nothing new. The 3DS said the same thing. Number of 3DSs bricked by Nintendo? Exactly 0. This new user agreement is effed up. This was removed. And the top comment, which has 87 upvotes. Are you listening to rage bait YouTubers again? You know that's not healthy for you. The only manufacturer that I've ever known to act on this clause in their EULA is phone companies that the phone is reported stolen. Nintendo has had it since the Wii U and the 3DS and never used it. Even with caught pirates, they do ban the in-console from online use, though. Your life will continue the exact same way as before, and this new user agreement will have 0 effect whatsoever on your life. That's not what some random guy on YouTube said. A YouTuber would never say something just for clicks, would they? I look forward to seeing that in my comments as well, in spite of the fact that I encourage my audience to use ad block as often as possible. After writing a 900-page guide on how to avoid ads in every single portion of your life, which is freely available, and not having a single sponsor on my channel over the past 13 years. You will see that in comments everywhere, because the people will not be addressing the arguments that I make. They will make assumptions as to why I made them, and then use those to discredit the actual argument, which is not an argument. It's not that Nintendo said that they're able to do this. It's that people are actively attacking anybody that pointed this out in their terms of service. The first concern with regards to whether or not companies are going to act on this. Many companies already have. If I were to go over every company that's done this, this video would be 3 hours long. Whether we're talking about a thermostat manufacturer that performs psychological experiments on its users, a $400 baby monitor that no longer works unless you pay a monthly fee for it that was not announced at the time of purchase, or a television that stops allowing you to change the source and select your HDMI port unless you agree to forced arbitration after a data breach that affected 15,000 users. Many companies that have the ability to brick your device will brick your device, and sometimes they'll do that even when it's not in the original terms of service, which is why it is concerning when you see other companies that are prominent, that have a reputation for not being very nice to their customers in this way, putting this into their terms of use. Next up, we're going to go over the forced arbitration clause. Forced arbitration says that if you want to sue them in a court of law because they've done something wrong to you, you're no longer allowed to do that. It limits your 7th Amendment rights under the Bill of Rights of the Constitution of the United States. And for some reason, this is legal. If they've screwed up in some way, if they've done something like, I don't know, release a console where the joysticks don't work, and they're not covering it under warranty for you, and they're not covering a large group of people under warranty, you can enter a class action lawsuit. And the class action lawsuit can force them to reimburse you or release extended warranty programs. Forced arbitration means that you're not allowed to go to court. Rather, you're going to go through a process called arbitration. Arbitration is where the manufacturer, like Nintendo, hires a group of people that are going to decide who is right and who is wrong. So imagine having a court, but where the judge and everybody involved are all paid by Nintendo rather than taxpayers. Who do you think is going to win? This is a clause that is always written in a very weaselly way. If you want to opt out of it, you have to go to 16J, even though you can hit agree to the terms of service by clicking agree on the console or on Nintendo's website. If you want to opt out of this complete bastardization of the Bill of Rights, you have to send them written notice to Nintendo of America at this particular address within 30 days. This is paper mail. Such notice must include the name of each person opting out, contact information for each person, and the email address registered to your Nintendo account. account. If you send timely written notice containing the required information, then the arbitration requirement will not apply to you. You may ask, why is it that a company that has been online for over 25 years, that has the ability to send me terms that I can accept over the internet on my device, is asking me to send them paper mail in order to opt out of an abusive terms of service? Because they want it to be as difficult as possible for you to opt in to your rights that you shouldn't have to opt into. The Bill of Rights is not an opt-out, opt-in thing. It's supposed to be there for all of us. There is no explanation for why you have to send paper mail for this rather than have a disagree or opt-out button right next to the agree button on your console or on the website, other than they are screwing with you and making it more difficult in the hopes that you will not opt out. Now, you may think, who cares about class action lawsuits? I don't really care about having checks on my refrigerator for 53 cents every time there's a data breach at Visa. Point taken. However, there are many manufacturers out there that will not take accountability or responsibility for the flaws in their product. When this occurs, they will usually not release an extended warranty repair program until there is a lawsuit. So even though class action lawsuits mostly exist to make lawyers rich while you get a 50-cent check on your fridge, very often they also exist to create these types of repair programs where you can get your device repaired for free after you are an affected user. So this is one example with Apple. These are many different repair programs, and many of these did not come out until there were class action lawsuits filed. These repair programs resulted in people being able to get free repairs instead of having to pay $600 to $1,500 for these repairs, which was what occurred before the class action lawsuit. Something that I've always been confused by on this channel is how many Apple users and Mac rumors and r/Apple people will be very aggravated at the content that I make on Apple, in spite of the fact that the content I make that details the design flaws often form the basis of these class action lawsuits that will result in these extended warranty programs coming out that allow you to pay $0 for repair instead of $600. Often people say that I'm greedily self-promoting my own business, in spite of the fact that when I advocate for these programs, repairs that I could charge $300 for are now being done by Apple for free. Very strange. But I digress. Your ability to have your day in court is very beneficial to you. Even if you don't think you're going to use it, and even if you think a lot of the times it doesn't work for you, there's really no good reason for it to be taken away from you. And what I find weird about this entire situation are how people are advocating against their own best interests. One of the questions that I would have for the people that are saying things like this with the rage bait YouTuber and everything else, I'm going to try and level with you here. How does this benefit you? When you say, you're listening to a rage bait YouTuber, nobody's going to actually do this, everything's going to be the same as it was before. I want to understand how you as a user are benefited by a clause being added to the terms of service that says that Nintendo can render your device permanently unusable in whole or in part. How does adding that to the terms of service make your position better? Why would you actively make fun of or deride people that point this out as a bad thing? I can understand if people don't take this as a serious issue. That's fine. I'm not judging you. Even if you're somebody that thinks, well, they're only going to do it to bad people, or meh, even if they do it to me, it's only a $200 console, no big deal. What's confusing to me is how people are arguing in favor of Nintendo rather than in favor of the customer when they are a Nintendo customer rather than a Nintendo shareholder. If we were talking about a device, like a phone, where one company says the reason we glue the battery in is because it makes it thinner and it allows us to have the same liquid resistance with a thinner phone with larger battery. There's an argument back and forth to be made. Some people will say, well, phones used to be liquid resistant anyway and have a good battery. They're going to argue back and forth on design decisions and what benefits the consumer. But there's something to argue about. Here, we're talking about the exact same console, the exact same games. The only difference is a line in a legal document that allows them the right to brick your console. And the terms here are kind of vague. I mean, when it says things like use Nintendo account services in any manner other than to use them in accordance with the applicable documentation and intended use in each case, what does intended use mean? Does that mean that I have pirated and cheated online? Or does that mean that I've installed a theme that you don't like? And would you use a term like that that's intentionally vague to do something to people that you don't particularly like? Here's my argument. When a company does something that has a 0% chance of benefiting the consumer, but a more than 0% chance of screwing the consumer, consumers should band together in saying that's bad, rather than make fun of each other or screw with each other or high-five each other as they're making fun of the people who are discussing the issue. Why is it that the people discussing the issue are the problem rather than the person who created the issue? This will never benefit you. This will never make your life better as a Nintendo customer. The games are not going to have better graphics. The battery life is not going to be longer. The console is not going to cost less money. The only thing that this does is it adds a clause that allows them to screw you. The news is not what Nintendo did. The news is the fact that we are not unified in our reaction to it. The only reason that we live in the world that we live in right now, where companies can remotely disable your access to all of these different items, where your car can spy on you and send your driving information back to General Motors, who sends it to somebody, who sends it to somebody, who sends it to your insurance company, that then hikes your rates because you smash your brakes as a result of the driver in front of you being drunk and doing something stupid. It's because we make fun of each other for quick dopamine hits rather than band together for real change. And what I'm suggesting to all of you is that you try to band together for real change. At some point, this will affect you. That's the thing that I notice the most as the independent repair shop owner for the past 15 years. Everybody who comes in here, it's always the same story. I never thought this would affect me. And a lot of people will say, yeah, I saw your video on this, that, and the other, but I never thought it would affect me. And I make sure to hammer home when I do certain repairs or certain data recoveries that would not have been possible if I were adhering to Apple's standards and certifications. This is why I got your data back. I bought this chip from a company that Apple says do not sell the chip to independent repair centers to. If I did not have access to this chip that I'm not supposed to have access to, you would not have your data right now. I really try to hammer that home because I want people to understand that when they're making fun of their neighbor for getting screwed, that they're actually making fun of their own future self. Because at some point, this will affect you. And I want people to consider modifications to their attitude a little bit so that they can start doing something about it before it affects them. Let's make the world a better place together, rather than tearing each other apart. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.